Greetings! Now, have you noticed there seems to be an abundance of ex stand up comedians that end up being right wing commentators? Have you noticed that, whether it be on GB News or just putting up their own YouTube channel? And it got me thinking, did these guys quit comedy because they wanted to pursue their politics, or were they just not any good in the first place? It got me thinking. Now, I am somewhat of a connoisseur of stand-up comedy. Some of my favourites being Louis C.K., Bill Burr, Dave Attell, Patrice O'Neill, Susie Wong. Not just American ones, British ones as well. Sean Locke is one of the greatest stand-ups there is. Kerry Godliman I like a lot. Aisling B, although she's Irish, but she's great as well. I've even been to the famous Comedy Cellar Comedy Club in New York, where a lot of those American artists that I just mentioned started off their career. So I'd say I'm quite a connoisseur in stand-up comedy. So let's check some of it out, shall we? We're going to go for Andrew Doyle, GB News presenter. Let's see what he's got to offer.
This is the problem with being offended by a joke, right? The problem, we've all got different boundaries, we've all got different triggers, right? Like, I'll give you an example of this. This is a good example. I think my friend Paul, for instance, he was once mugged in Manchester, so now he can't watch Coronation Street. Right? That's his trigger. The accent sets him.
That's not bad. That's not bad. That's not a bad joke. Thing is, as soon as he started, I was like, oh God, another stand-up comedian talking about how you can't joke anymore and how it offends people. We've heard it to death, but Coronation Street gag was quite good. I enjoyed that.
Well, that's his boundary. And, like, I've got a similar thing. I once broke my arm because I slipped and fell into a pile of horse excrement. So now I can't listen to you too.
Not so good. Although you two are shit, though. I'll give him that.
Poor God. Different boundaries, and I find it so weird to get offended by jokes. It's essentially a theatrical thing. Like, loads of things offend me, but that's my problem, isn't it? Loads of things like misuse of the English language really fucks me up. I can't believe it. In fact, I broke up with my boyfriend because he couldn't spell parallelogram. I was like, fuck that. Oh, and there's that announcement I hear all the time on the train. I heard it on the train coming here actually. The train terminates here. No, I don't think it does. I think the journey terminates here. I think the train is probably going to live to see another day, isn't it?
That's not bad.
Really.
Hey, I found 2 jokes out of 4 funny so far, so it's a good start.
Well, you can do it if you want. I'm just saying it's. I've lost so many friends this year, but actually because of politics. I've lost loads of friends because of politics, and I'm not even joking. Because I'll be honest with you, I did vote Leave in the EU referendum. And that doesn't normally fucking happen. It really doesn't. And I've lost so many. I mean, it takes guts, though, doesn't it? It takes guts to admit that you voted Leave. It's a bit like trying to spend a Scottish £10 note in an English shop. You know? Like, because you are technically entitled to do that, but there's going to be a fucking row, isn't there? Let's be absolutely honest about that.
That's a Lee Evans joke, though, really, isn't it? I think Lee Evans claims the Scottish £10 note gag.
I think you'll find, pal, that's legal tender.
I think you'll find that's legal tender. But this should be interesting. I'm sure he's going to get into Brexit now.
So anyway, I'm there in this gastropub with Colin and James, and we're talking about Brexit. And of course they're doing the same usual fucking thing, and they start saying, oh, anyone who voted Leave is a fascist. Right, this is the point that word fascism has a very specific meaning. I don't like this spread of what it means. It means something, it means the KKK, Combat 18, Mumsnet. Right? That's what it means. You can't mess around with these definitions. So I was just sitting there thinking, I'm going to say something, I'm going to fucking say something, and I did. All I said was that I don't think that voting in support of the EU is a particularly left-wing position to hold, right? And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm just saying that the EU is a neoliberal, technocratic, undemocratic, unaccountable right-wing bloc that was set up by the super rich to protect the interests of the super rich, right? It's essentially a Thatcherite project. It's there to protect market forces and protectionism over.
I'll get to the point of what he just said in a minute, but the thing that actually really annoys me about what he's just done there is I've seen an interview with him where he's criticising left-wing comedians for doing exactly what he just said, not telling jokes, but putting out a statement in order to get a round of applause.
as long as I don't start going on stage and preaching in a humorless way.
Yeah.
See, that would be my red line. The risk, I think, is that people do that. You'll notice that a lot of the sort of identitarian leftist woke comedians stop being funny because they start substituting humour for sermons.
Yes.
And that you know exactly, I don't want to drop names, but you know exactly the type of comics I'm talking about. They stand up and they just say the fashionable opinions, and then they get a round of applause, usually, rather than a laugh.
Yes.
Because people aren't laughing, which is an instinctive response.
That's exactly what he's just done.
What are you talking about? I'm just saying that the EU is a neoliberal, technocratic, undemocratic, unaccountable right-wing bloc that was set up by the super rich to protect the interests of the super rich, right? It's essentially a Thatcherite project.
So as you can see, that is exactly what he's just done. He's just put out a blank political statement to pander to the audience in order to get a round of applause. Not a laugh, not a joke, but a round of applause. And it's quite ironic that he's freely criticises left-wing comedians for doing that and then does exactly the same thing himself. Now, I've got to be honest, I'm not really a massive fan of putting politics into stand-up comedy anyway. Like, I don't mind political comedy, like sketch shows and stuff like Jonathan Pye and panel shows, Have I Got News For You, and things like that. But stand-up comedy, I don't like it. Whether it be left-wing or right, I'm not really a fan of Russell Howard or Nish Kumar and these guys on the right. I think once you bring out your political allegiance in the stand-up, you just divide the room, don't you? And politics is so tribal that it's hard to get on board with the guy if you are on the other side and you kind of feel left out and excluded and you can't really enjoy the rest of the show. I find personally the best comedians out there leave their political allegiances behind. One of my favourites, Louis C.K., is very, very left-wing. If you talk to him in interviews, he's very open and honest about his politics, but he doesn't bring that into his stand-up comedy. I mean, that's just my personal preference. If you enjoy these guys, if you enjoy these political stand-ups, all power to you. You know, go out there, I hope you have a great time, but it's just not for me. I kind of like stand-up comedy to escape politics. But the point he makes here about Brexit being left-wing or right-wing is an interesting point. It's not funny. I don't know whether it should be in a stand-up show. It's not particularly funny, but it is an interesting point. He's trying to claim that Brexit is the EU is right-wing. I'd refute that. I'd have to disagree with the points that he made. So what did he say? He said that it's a neoliberal organisation that just looks after the rich. And is undemocratic, of course, that one, the one that we hear all the time. So undemocratic, Jesus Christ, I mean, the UK have one of the most influential positions in the EU. Every single law is voted on, we have MEPs, okay, we all have a say, and the UK have one of the largest says in all decisions that are made. Decisions that are made are mainly about business, mainly about agriculture and things like that. If the UK want to legalise cannabis, they can do so. It's not a dictatorship, okay? They don't dictate the laws. We have a say, and those laws are mainly about trade. Anyway, so I'm obviously going to refute that part of it. Looking after the rich, of course, big business profit from the EU. Of course they do. But the beautiful thing about the EU is that the small man does as well. If you have a small business making cheese, whatever... whatever your thing is, you can benefit from the EU too. You can package it, send it over to France, it can be in the shops tomorrow. And I guess the only thing that maybe you might have a point in is left-wing politics are generally more local. You know, left-wing people generally don't like big organisations. We like our democracy more local. And I kind of get that point, I guess. But we all live in an internationalist world where we're trading, you know, unless you're going to do some drastic changes and start being self-sufficient in local communities. I mean, there's a big step away from that, isn't there? And then, of course, you've got freedom of movement and immigration and being able to live and work and study in all countries over the EU. I think that's much more of a left-wing thing, especially with immigration. So I'm going to disagree with everything you say. To be honest, I think that's enough of this guy. Should we get on to Mark Dolan? I'm really interested to see Mark Dolan because he is incredibly unfunny on GBNews. Incredibly unfunny.
Definitely. When I read this story, I had one word: Dole. Now,
blimey, when I heard that language, I didn't know whether I was comings or going.
So I must say, I'm quite intrigued to what this guy can do. I mean, I guess he doesn't write his scripts on GB News himself, or maybe he does. But whenever I've seen him, he is the epitome of not funny. So probably best we check out his stand-up, shall we? Let's give it a go.
Are we having a nice time? Are we happy? So this Brexit thing's a nightmare, isn't it? I just think...
Oh God, we're straight into the politics. Okay, here we go. Let's carry on.
Yeah, I'm just stressed out. I'm seriously considering moving to Greece just to get some economic stability. I have a personal relationship with it because my wife is German, okay, and we've had Brexit, which means she'll have to go, and probably quite quickly, I would imagine there will be buses. So obviously I packed her bags just to be on the safe side. So it's weird, and I just, I don't really understand the logic of it. I think this immigration thing, I think we kind of need it, because obviously there are pressures with it. But my attitude is that this country, right, British people think that it's rubbish here, right? That's our attitude, is that it's not great. So I think if there are people who think this country is so amazing and want to come here, it's like, in you come. Do you know what I mean? If you're willing to cling to the undercarriage of a heavy goods vehicle for like 12 hours just to make a new life in Telford, I think, do you know what I mean? Diesel oil just dripping down your face, in you come, big guy.
Is this the same guy? What is going on? This is the same Mark Dolan GB News presenter, right? What the hell happened to this guy? Okay, so we've swung to the reverse now, haven't we? We've gone to a supposed left-wing comedian, I guess. I mean, he's being very pro-immigration, so I guess you'd call him a left-wing comedian. I can't believe this is the same guy. What happened to him? Has GB News, has he been like enticed with the money of GB News or something to completely change his political direction? Or, I don't know, let's carry on. Very bizarre. I was not expecting this.
You know what I mean? You've proved your keenness, so it's all good. I was in WH Smith recently because I know how to live, and it's a strange business. They've got this thing. I was in there recently, and I want to have some water. I want to buy some Buxton water, and they've got this deal where you have to have the Daily Telegraph. Have you guys seen that? It's very strange, and it's like, I'm thinking I'm thirsty, but then I don't want this horrible right-wing rag in my life. Do you know what I mean?
What is going on? What am I witnessing here? You don't want the right-wing Telegraph rag, but you're happy to be a presenter on GB News, which is far worse than the Telegraph. Well, is it? I mean, it's the Tory graph. The Telegraph just does what the Tory party tells it to do. GB News is a whole other level of right-wing. This is incredible. I was really not expecting this. This is bizarre.
It was a hot day, and afterwards I felt hydrated, but I kind of also thought the Jews do cause a lot of problems.
He's literally just describing his job on GB News. He's using the Jews as an example, but if you switch the Jews for immigrants, migrants, now after watching a bit of GB News, I hate migrants, I hate immigrants. This is a parody of himself. This is so weird watching this because he is taking the piss out of what he has become. I was not expecting this. This is very, very bizarre.
I've got this, you're good to go. I went to Pret a Manger, which has opened, and it's a vegetarian one. Have you guys seen that? Have you been down there? It's a vegetarian actual, it was great. The service was terrible. The staff were just tired and worn out. Also, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a little bit, I don't know what you think about, I'm trying to take care of my outfit, and this jacket, I don't know, what do you think? Do we like the jacket? It splits opinion. It doesn't matter, I kept the receipt from BHS, so it's all good. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you in Edinburgh. I've been Mark Dolan, thank you so much.
Okay. Aren't you supposed to leave your best material till last? Right at the end there, he goes on about vegetarian pret-a-manger, and the staff are looking a bit tired, and my jacket's pretty shit. That was pretty terrible. That was pretty terrible. I think probably the first one was better. Andrew Doyle, at least he made me laugh a couple of times, but I didn't enjoy his political rant. But that was very bizarre from Mark Dolan. That I really wasn't expecting that. His whole bit was a parody of himself. The fact that he bought had to. I remember that. Do you remember that when they were giving away the Telegraph with the bottles of water? I actually do remember that, and I was like, can I just have the bottle of water? I just gave the paper straight back. But then his whole joke is about how he was nice and refreshed, but now he suddenly hates Jewish people. Literally your job on GB News. This is what you have become. You have now become that man that is making people hate immigration, hate immigrants, hate refugees, deny climate change. You are the guy you're taking the piss out of. Very bizarre. If you enjoyed that, plonk a like on the video. You can subscribe up top. There'll be another video there. You can check that out as well. If you like these reviews, I need to do the trigger monetary guys. If you enjoyed this, let me know and I'll review theirs as well. Till next time, take care.